What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Key Smash Studios video. Today I'm going to be talking about how to set up trees and clutter in a Unity scene. Now this is specifically involving the terrain game object that you can create in Unity. So if you don't have one of those, unfortunately you cannot do this method to create a large number of trees and sort of plan out your level. With that said, if you find this to be helpful, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, all that jazz. It really does help us out, and we'll hop right into it. Alright, the first thing to talk about is to create a terrain. If I go to this terrain, I will just zoom out really quick. And on this terrain, there are a few trees. And I want to talk about how you set up trees, things of that nature, and how you can create some clutter on the ground. Because you obviously don't want to have just this big floating square plane. You want to have stuff on it. You want to make it realistic and things like that. So I'm going to come over here to a little bit of a smaller area so we can deal with something that we can tangibly see, and we'll hop right into this. So on the terrain, when you select the terrain here, you can see that there are several options over here in the inspector. Primarily we're concerned with two different sections of this, the paint trees section and the paint details section. Now there are a few things in the terrain settings which we need to be aware of. I'm not going to change any of them today, but detail distance, detail density, tree distance, and billboard start all affect when you can start to see trees, how dense they are, just sort of like a setting on how far you can see. You can see if I drag out this tree distance, in the very background of the scene, you can see the trees start to come out and come closer. So as I drag this out, we can see more and more detail. So it's worth noting, if you would like to have like a vista in your game, this is where you come to do that. But like I said, we're primarily concerned with these two tabs here, and I'm going to go over how to add things into them and get started. I will say I am using imported free assets from the Unity Asset Store. If you need to know how to do that, I will put a link here and a link in the description to a video on how to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a tree. So I'm going to come down here to this terrain section. I'm going to this middle tab where it says paint trees. I'm going to hit edit trees. Now I can edit an existing tree by selecting it and hit edit tree, or I can just hit add tree to create a new tree. What this does is this opens up this little tiny window here. What we're going to want to do is navigate to a place where we know a tree is in our asset folder. Down here I have imported an asset pack from the asset store, and I know that there is one called tree 1 that looks like this. So I'm going to come up here to this, hit this little dot here, and I'm going to search for tree 1. Now there's probably a bunch of these, but as I select them, we can see that the model appears down here. So I'm going to select this one that says tree 1 from the JP Environmental Asset Pack. That's the one I found here. And I'm going to hit add. So now when I select my terrain again, you can see that this tree has popped up. Zoom out a little bit here. I'm going to drag this, change a few of these settings. You need to have a certain size brush to start getting some trees. I need to have a certain density. I'm going to rest somewhere around the 30 to 40 range. And then I'm just going to click once, and you can see that some trees have appeared. Now obviously these are high poly trees, and the ones that are in the project are low poly. It does not matter, this method works on low poly or high poly, it's all good. So I have these high poly trees here. What I would really like to do is have some clutter on the ground next to them. Maybe it's some grass, maybe it's some like low poly little details. Now I know in an asset pack I have downloaded here that there is a low poly model of some rocks that are on the ground. I can open this up in a 3D viewer, and we can see that they're just some simple rocks. It's super low poly. This is an ideal candidate for a low poly clutter. So I'm going to go ahead and select this terrain again. I'm going to go over here to paint details, so that's the fourth tab. And just like before where we added the tree right here with edit trees, I'm going to edit details here, and I'm going to add a detail mesh. Now a detail mesh is a little bit different than a grass. Detail mesh is a 3D object. Detail grass, if I go to edit details here, there's add grass texture. That is a 2D object. It does it sort of like a billboard. But on the detail mesh, we're looking at a 3D object. So I know that rocks underscore small, A and B, are both rocks from this asset pack. So I'm going to go with A, and that's good. And then I want to make a couple changes here because this is a low poly texture and we're using the details. For whatever reason, Unity is like, oh, we want to color this ourselves, so we need to dictate what the color is on Unity, which is fine. We can do that. If I click on it down here, we'll see in the bottom of our inspector this model shows up. So on its healthy color, I'm just going to select the top of it. On its dry color, I'm going to select one of the dark sides of it. Maybe not the fully dark side. And I'm going to hit add. Now in our details, if we select a sort of slightly different brush here, we can see that these are now painted with those colors in mind. And I forgot to do one quick thing, so I'm going to go back to details and hit edit, and instead of render mode grass, I'm going to hit vertex lit. And what that does is it sort of treats it like a 3D object as opposed to just one planular object. So you can see that we are now allowed to paint those details with this little brush, and we can add them in wherever we like in the scene. We can also add different details, so let's say we have a mushroom here that we would like to do. I'm just going to search for mushroom down here. Hit add. And once again, I forgot to switch it to vertex lit. And then you can see that we can have these mushrooms as well. These are sort of low poly. But if we would like to do something high poly, we can also do like a grass texture. So I know that I downloaded a grass texture specifically for this. I have no idea if it's great or not. I just know that I imported one that would work in this manner. So I have this grass texture here, and I don't need to change any of these healthy or dry colors. I can just make this a little bit darker or something like that. So I'm going to hit add, and now when I paint, if I select the right thing, we should see this grass start to pop up. So this is a little bit of a higher poly thing, but like I said, these are billboards, so they will always rotate to face the camera, but they are just a 2D object. So using a combination of these and Clutter can really add to a scene. Instead of just having a big blank platform here, like this, we can have scene that has details, and you know, those sound effects that we add in with the details really takes your game to the next level. And those little tiny details can make the difference between immersion and, hey, this is kind of like a neat game that someone made. So as always, if you have any questions about how any of this works, these trees or details, let me know down in the comments below. You can find a link in the description to our Discord. You should totally join that. We'd love to hear from you. What are you doing? Things of that nature. If you found this to be extraordinarily helpful, you can find the link in the description to our Patreon and our Twitch. I would love for you to go take a look at either of those. As always, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. It really does help us out, and hopefully I'll see you next week.